Everybody. Now we've still got people joining the meeting. My name is Beth Roche. I'm joined by Nathan McNulty, and Jay Connor, and Megan Williams. Welcome to Ameritrust Wealth Management's first ever client educational care webinar. Today we're talking about Social Security and Medicare. These are some of the most important components of an individual's retirement plan. There's a variety of elections and decisions that need to be made. And so our hope is that we provide you some clarity around the topics, as well as several financial planning opportunities. The presentation is being recorded. We'll send it out to all the attendees afterwards. We're also going to post it on our website for educational purposes in case you want to share it with anybody. If you've got any questions during our presentation, please feel free to put those in the chat room. Jay Connor and Megan Williams will be monitoring that and answering them as we go along, and we'll also have Q&A at the end. So let's get this ball rolling. First, we're going to talk about Social Security. We've just got a few tidbits here. There's a lot that's happened along Social Security's timeline. It was established in 1935 by FDR. And Miss Ida Mae Fuller was the first recipient of monthly Social Security benefits. She received $22.54 a month. That began in 1940. And Ms. Fuller lived a long life, up to 100 years old. She had put in 3 years worth of Social Security, began collecting at the age of 65, and lived to be 100. LBJ added Medicare in 1965. Cost of living adjustments came along in the 1950s, and automatic cost of livings were added in 72.
Yeah, Beth, an interesting spot on the timeline, I think, here is in 1977, when Congress addressed the first financing shortfall. So this is something that's on a lot of our clients' minds today, that in 9 years, there's a projected depletion of the Social Security Trust Fund. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but I think it's neat to look at the historical timeline of Social Security and remember we've been there before. 1977 and then actually 1983 was a second instance in which a shortfall was addressed. That one was actually called the Greenspan Commission, and they made small changes to Social Security. No one has ever not received a Social Security monthly check. So anyway, I think it's interesting to see that we've been there before in terms of funding issues.
I agree. That's a really good point, Nathan. Thanks. First, a little overview on how Social Security is funded. On everybody's paycheck throughout the years, they've had FICA withholdings. FICA is the federal insurance contributions tax. And really, that's the 15.3% of your gross wages. You pay half of that, the 7.65, and your employer pays half of that. And part of that goes to Social Security and some to Medicare. So that's how Social Security is funded.
That piece is capped on the Social Security. You pay that tax up to a certain amount of income. And that's one part that's often discussed at closing some of the shortfall, potentially raising that cap. That's one thing they've done in the past.
Yes. Hopefully everybody has signed on to the Social Security website. If you haven't, I strongly suggest that you do. They just go to ssa.gov. And today this is part of what your statement looks like. Today we're focusing on the retirement portion, and that goes over your full retirement age. In this example, that's age 67, what your payment would be at age 70, and the monthly payment at age 62. Full retirement age is based on the year that you were born. So if you were born before 1960, there are small increments throughout your full retirement age. But in 1960 and later, anybody born in 1960 and later, the full retirement age is 67. You can start benefits as early as age 62, or you can delay those benefits until age 70.
This is another change that was implemented in Social Security in our history. When Social Security first started in 1935, the full retirement age was 65. And you can see now, per Beth's last slide, that it's 67. That might be another change that would likely happen at some point in the future as people continue to live longer.
So in this slide, we're looking at a full retirement age. The example is 66. And you can see the impact of early retirement, taking a benefit at the age of 62. The monthly benefit is at the top, $750, or delaying until the age of 70, and see there's quite a difference in that monthly benefit. There's a big value of waiting until the at least full retirement age or up to the age of 70. There's an increase of up to 8% a year. And the market typically has not performed at the average of the market returns has not been 8% per year. So this is a great opportunity. If you were to take your benefit early at the age of 62 in this example, you'd receive $18,000 a year. If you waited until the full retirement age of 66 in this example, you'd get $24,000 a year. But by waiting until the age of 70, you get $31,680 a year. That's $13,680 more a year than starting your benefit at age 62. And that's a significant increase. And Nathan, you want to take this one?
Sure. Yeah. So Social Security break-even analysis basically looks to, it asks, how long do I have to live to delay the Social Security filing? So again, you can file as early, you can file for your Social Security, your own benefit as early as age 62 or as late as age 70. There's no benefit in late waiting after age 70. But a break-even analysis is a popular tool that a lot of people like to show, hey, how long do I need to live for that higher monthly payment to pay off? So this shows that. So for instance, the way you read this, the intersection of the age 62 and age 66 lines, what that shows is if someone filed at age 66 rather than age 62, they would break even and be ahead if they lived at least 77.9 years. So 78 years or longer, you'd be better off filing at age 66 rather than age 62. What about age 70 versus 66? So in this example, 66 is the full retirement age. If that person deferred to age 70, they would be ahead if they lived to at least 82 and a half years old. So I think an important kind of understanding of the 62 versus 66 versus 67 versus 70, all of these benefits were designed by Social Security to be actuarially equivalent. So in other words, if you live to your life expectancy, the benefits should be the same. You have more years claimed at age 62, but a lower balance, and vice versa at age 70. The thing about that actuarial equivalency is that was designed in 1983 when life expectancies were shorter and when interest rates were about double where they are today. So we think there is, there are a few free lunches in finance, but that 8% delayed retirement credit that was implemented in 1983 might be one of those free lunches. It's arguably not actuarially equivalent anymore because people are living longer and because you can't get the same interest on a CD as you did in 1983.
Speaking of living longer, we've had a large lifespan increase. A male born in 1894 had a 66-year life expectancy compared to being born in 1960 and having an 84-year life expectancy. It's almost a 20-year increase. Retirement has increased from 1 year to almost 20 years. And I'll tell you, my own father, he's 89 years old. He spent 25 years working and he's been retired for 34 years now. So this is certainly something to consider when you're looking at when to file your Social Security benefit. And this is just a little tidbit of information as to when people are taking their benefits. As you can see, there's a 30-40% take them at age 62 to 64. And the majority of them are taking them at age 65 to 69. And very few are taking their benefits waiting to take them until age 70. So I really see a lot of opportunity for better planning in this area. Like you said, Nathan, taking advantage of the free lunch that is out there. Nathan, you want to take this one?
Sure. So, a lot of you might be wondering, one question we get a lot as financial advisors is, can I continue to work and collect Social Security? And the answer to that depends on when you start, how old you are, when you started filing, when you started claiming Social Security, and how old you are currently. So what this chart shows is there's kind of three different buckets. If you filed for Social Security before full retirement age, and when is that? That was that chart a few slides ago. It really depends on your year of birth. For most people today, full retirement age is either 66 and change or 67. So if you're still working before full retirement age and you've claimed Social Security, there is an income limit where if you exceed that limit, $1 for every $2 of earnings is withheld from your Social Security. That goes down in the year of your full retirement age. So if you continue to work and you turn full retirement age in October, your earnings up to October, they're going to be reduced $1 of every $3. So there's a reduction in Social Security benefits in that same year before you turn full retirement age. The important thing to remember from this, or to understand, is those dollars withheld are not permanently lost. Once you turn full retirement age, your benefit is adjusted that you get paid back that money. So money is withheld, it's not permanently gone. But of note here at the bottom, after full retirement age, there's no income limits. So if you're on Social Security after full retirement age, you can work and there's no limit on your earnings that would reduce your Social Security. How are your Social Security retirement benefits determined? That depends on your history of earnings. So you have to have at least 10 years of earnings to qualify for a retirement benefit. And what the Social Security Administration looks at is your 35 highest years of earnings. So if you have 40 years of earnings, it's going to take your highest 35 and discard those lowest 35. If you have 30 years of earnings, you're going to have a 0 for 5 of those years. So highest 35 years of earnings. We have a note on here, be proactive. So your earnings history is on the Social Security login. When you log in, look at your benefit. You can also look at your earnings history. It's a good idea to take a look at that and ensure it's accurate, because it's a lot easier to correct that if you say, hey, my income last year or the year before just doesn't look right, than if you say, hey, my income 20 or 30 years doesn't look right. One other important thing to note here is that Social Security, the determination of your benefit is progressive. So your lower dollars, the first 20 or $30 of income, you get a higher credit for that into your Social Security than the money you make from, say, 100,000 to 150,000. So there's these bend points that you'll see in the calculation that basically tries to provide a larger benefit for people, a larger replacement benefit for people without high earnings. The spousal benefit. If my spouse did not work, does my spouse get a retirement benefit through Social Security? And the answer to that is yes. If you're married to a worker with a Social Security benefit, you would get, if you had no earnings record, you would get 50%, up to a maximum of 50% of your spouse, the worker's full retirement age benefit. And it depends on when you as the spouse claims. So if the spouse's full retirement age is, say, 67, they would get 50% of the working spouse's full retirement age benefit, as long as that spouse, the non-working spouse, waited till they're on full retirement age. It's kind of complicated, but the bottom line is a non-working spouse gets at least, even if no work, would get 50% of the worker's full retirement age benefit. One important point here is that you would not get 50% of the worker's age 70 benefit. It's maxed out at 50% of the full retirement age. What about divorced spouses? This is similar to working spouses. In terms of being able to access 50% of the full retirement age of the ex-spouse. The requirements here that we've noted are the marriage has to have lasted at least 10 years, currently unmarried, or if remarried after age 60. And then there's also requirements for that divorced non-working spouse. You have to be at least age 62 or older. There's going to be a reduction if you file for that before your own full retirement age. And it does not impact that ex-divorce's own working benefit. And then just the surviving spouse benefit. So, at a worker's death, the surviving benefit would receive 100% of that deceased worker's benefit. And, there are reductions based on when that surviving spouse might claim. But the bottom line here, I think, to understand, and this really speaks to the point of when you're making the filing decision to consider joint life expectancy. Say you have a married couple and the higher earner died first, that lower earning spouse would continue the Social Security benefit, let's assume that both of them have already claimed a benefit and the higher earning spouse passes away. The lower earning spouse, their own benefit would go away and they would take over the benefit of the higher earning spouse. So this is why it's really important to consider joint life expectancy if you're married, and not necessarily just the life expectancy of the higher earner. It's going to impact lifetime benefits for the longer of those two lives.
That's a really good point, Nathan. Thank you. Now we're going to talk a bit about Medicare. Medicare is eligible for anybody age 65. They're eligible for Medicare. You're eligible the first day of the month that you turn 65. So if your birthday is on the 30th of August, then you would be eligible on the 1st of August. If you're already receiving Social Security benefits at age 65, then you're going to be automatically enrolled. But if you are working longer than the age of 65 and not filing for Social Security benefits, delaying your benefits, it's really important to pay attention to Social Security and when to enroll in it. There's several enrollment periods. There's the initial enrollment period when you turn age 65. And that is 3 months before the month you turn 65, your birth month, and 3 months after you turn 65. I think it's always better safe than sorry and go for the early date of 3 months before the month you turn 65. And one thing that really I want you to pay attention to in this initial period is you get to choose any type of Medicare supplement at this point, and there's no medical underwriting that is done. So it's really important to choose wisely. The annual enrollment period is coming up in the near future. It begins on October 15th, and this refers to Advantage plans, which is called Part C sometimes, and Part D, the prescription plans. So you might be bombarded pretty soon with telemarketers and commercials on television. And if you've enrolled in traditional Medicare and you have a Medicare supplement, do not be swayed from changing them into an Advantage plan. And definitely take the time, though, to review your Part D with your pharmacist or your insurance agent and make certain you've got the right coverage, because medicines change and your prescriptions change and things like that. The open enrollment period is in January through March. If you want to exit an Advantage plan and switch to a Medicare supplement and original Medicare, this refers back to the comment I made in the initial enrollment period of needing to go through medical underwriting if that is your choice at that time. So make certain you do work closely with your insurance professional and have that streamlined and managed closely.
Yeah, I want to reiterate that real quick. Beth, you're going to talk in a minute ago. You got some really neat slides on oftentimes people will choose either Medicare Advantage, which is kind of an all-encompassing, or traditional Medicare with a Medigap policy. That Medigap policy, again, if you go that route, no underwriting, no medical underwriting at the initial enrollment period, but most of those plans do require medical and underwriting if you were to change that subsequently. And it's kind of the opposite with Medicare Advantage plans. Most of those do not require medical underwriting. So it's feasible that you could, in the initial enrollment period, go with a Medicare supplement plan, and then later down the road, in an open enrollment, choose Medicare Advantage. But you can't really do vice versa unless you want to risk, being denied certain policies that you're seeking because of medical underwriting. Again, no medical underwriting in that initial period.
Yes. Or in the special qualifying event either. So if you are 65 or older and you've been working and you're covered by a group healthcare plan, or maybe your spouse's healthcare plan, and you retire after the age of 65 and your medical insurance would shift at that time into Medicare, that event does allow you to sign up for Medicare Part B at a later date. So that would be another opportunity for making that choice. But you do need to manage that closely and make certain that you're not missing your opportunity and enrolling at the correct time. Here's some parts and options to Medicare. Part A, that's the hospital insurance. Part B is your medical insurance. That's mainly doctor fees and durable medical equipment. I have my next slide goes a little bit deeper in that. Part D is your prescription drug coverage, and the options are original Medicare, Part A and B, add the Part D to those two, and get a Medicare supplement. Another path is the Medicare Advantage plan. Those are called Part C. Nathan just spoke about those. I'm going to say that the Part C is really privatized Medicare. They're managed, so it's not managed by the US government Medicare department. It's managed by the insurance companies. And those insurance companies are allowed to take the dollar amount allotted to each individual and slice and dice it and come up with their plan. There are unpleasant surprises that can be encountered as your health declines.
We've seen in the news last year or so, last year or two, major hospitals and providers discontinuing offering certain Medicare Advantage plans. Baptist East in Louisville was in the news a year or so ago for that. So it's something you want to take a lot of time looking at. Who are the accepted providers? What's kind of the trend with that before making this decision?
As opposed to being on original Medicare, where that is a blanket approval across the United States. Just pointing that out, that Medicare Advantage plans do tend to be regional and they do have more restrictions on them.
Just anecdotally, I'll hop in on that. We've all seen it. The denial rates on those Advantage plans are very high. You have to fight it quite a bit.
So that's, as you can see, we have a little soapbox that we're on about Advantage plans. I'm going to go over a little bit about Medicare Part A, hospital costs, and that's your hospital room, your meals, your inpatient care, like special units, ICU, your inpatient drugs, lab tests, medical equipment, operating, recovery room. It's all of those things that go along with being in the hospital. There is a deductible per benefit period, and there are other costs in here per benefit period, and there's no out-of-pocket limit. So that's Part A, hospital. And then there's Part B, and that's your medical cost, your doctor cost. Doctor visits, including the doctor while you're in the hospital, annual wellness visits, flu shots, clinical labs, x-rays, CAT scans, EKGs, pathology, mental health, durable medical equipment at home. And that's your premium that you're paying out of your Social Security check. $174.70 for most people. The next slide's going to address a little IRMA discussion on this. There's an annual deductible and then other costs. So that's 20% of the approved amount for covered services and excess charges. This is where your Medigap policy, your Medicare supplement will come in and cover those costs. There's no out-of-pocket limit. That's why a Medicare supplement layered with Part A and Part B is the most solid coverage you can get. This comes straight out of your lovely Medicare and You guidebook that if you're over the age of 65, you should be getting. My parents just got theirs last week for 25, and all of the details are in that book. Now we're going to talk a little bit about that Part B premium. It's the income-related monthly adjustment amount, the IRMA. And this looks at your earned income, and then it looks based on your earned income as what you pay for Part B. So most people are going to pay that first level, the $174.70. But if your earned income is higher, you will have that additional cost of Part B taken, you'll owe that for your Part B. So $174.70 plus up to $594 a month. Nathan's going to discuss this more in planning opportunities and strategies.
Yeah, it can more than triple the cost of these Part B and Part D programs. And Beth has noted here that, 2022 individual income. So you're looking at 2 years back. So if you're retiring, your income this year in 2024 will impact your premiums in 2026. So it's kind of a 2-year look back. But if you think about it, it uses the tax return. So that's it's needed to have that delay. But I'm going to talk a little bit about this in my part about planning opportunities. But if you note here at the bottom, it says life change. If you have a life-changing event, you can ask to lower the additional parts that you pay. In the very last sentence there, life-changing events include marriage, divorce, the death of a spouse, loss of income, and an employer settlement payment. So loss of income, retirement qualifies for that. So I'm going to talk about that process here in a little bit, but if you retire at 63 or later and you face a Part B or Part D premium, that's probably something you should dispute. There are other things too, death of a loved one, a divorce. What's not covered is something like a capital gain. You sell something in your portfolio, you sell a property, you do a Roth conversion, stuff like that would not qualify. But I think this is something that gets overlooked that I'm going to talk about a little bit more later. Thanks, Beth.
No problem. There are a few things that aren't covered by Part A and Part B. Maybe you think Medicare covers everything, but it doesn't. It doesn't cover hearing aids, hearing care, doesn't cover most dental, vision care, or foot care, long-term care, no alternative medicine, care while you're on travel outside the United States, or non-emergency transportation. That's, taking trips to the doctor when you're not able to drive yourself. I'm going to focus a little bit on long-term care that is not covered by Medicare. I think a lot of people believe that there are coverage benefits under here, and it's not. And just yesterday, I was told by a nurse at the hospital, I was in there with my mom, and she told us that Medicare would pay for home health care to come take care of my dad while my mom's recovering from her own health issues. But the nurse was incorrect. Home health care is probably the name of a company that she knew. And while they come out and sit and take care of him and make certain he's safe, it's not going to pay for that. It'll pay for some minimal bathing him at home and some occupational and physical therapy, but they're not going to provide any caregiver relief. And my point on this is it's really important to have a plan when your caregiver is unable to give care. A little side note, an HSA account which is a health savings account, you can use those account balances to pay for some home health caregiver relief. And Nathan's going to go in depth in the HSA accounts in his planning section. This is some of the costs of long-term care from 2023 here in the state of Kentucky. As you can see, the financial costs of long-term care expenses can seriously impact your budget. like to mention, not to mention the emotional toll on your family. And I encourage everybody to consider creating a care plan before you need the care. The monetary value of a care plan for families and friends is equally like the expense of taking care of your family and friends is pretty much equal to paid care. Women are more likely to require care and need more years of paid care. And by having a care plan, you're going to avoid, you can take care of avoiding burdening others. You can make certain your family knows your wishes, and you'll have more control over your own care. So I do encourage everybody to come up with a care plan.
So again, these expenses we're looking at there, and Beth, go back just for a second.
Sorry.
These expenses, I mean, those are significant expenses that a lot of people are facing that require long-term care expense later in life, oftentimes for many years. And again, as Beth noted, these are not covered by Medicare. So these are risks that we're going to look at within your financial plan and make the determination and have those discussions. Are these risks that we self-fund? In other words, from your portfolio assets and other income you have, is this a risk that we look at insuring through long-term care insurance? But again, we're highlighting these potential costs, but I just wanted to reiterate that Medicare, which is kind of the focus of this, does not cover the majority of these.
Right. And another note there, Nathan, I think it's a really good opportunity for your financial plan to run a scenario where you look, what happens if we do have a long-term care event and it's not funded? What does that do to our retirement? A lot of people want to think that they're just, oh, mom will take care of dad, but you can't ever tell what's really going to happen. And with that, we'll move on.
Thanks, Beth. So I'm going to talk about just some planning considerations around Social Security, Medicare, and kind of that age where people are considering those different programs. So my first slide here shows that your retirement age does not necessarily equal your Social Security filing age. I think this is critical to understand that you don't necessarily need to file Social Security when you retire. It might make sense to do that, but it doesn't necessarily always make sense to do that. I always cringe when I hear someone that had filed at retirement and not really putting a whole lot of thought to it. So in actuality, having a gap here between the age you retire and the age you file for Social Security actually opens the window for some good planning opportunities, because if you have that gap, you can fully control your taxable income over that time period. And it really opens the door for some different ideas that I'm going to talk about here in a moment. So, different considerations for claiming Social Security. The first one is that decision should be made as part of an overall financial plan and not in isolation. So, if you're using a tool or having a conversation with someone or thinking about this in isolation, and you're not thinking about, hey, what other income sources do I have? What other assets do I have? What's the tax nature of those assets? You're really shortchanging yourself by not looking at it holistically. The second one is don't focus solely on the break-even analysis. We reviewed that earlier and talked about how those work. The Social Security Administration actually used to have a break-even analysis on their website. Research found that when people used that, they were more likely to claim at age 62 because they thought, hey, I'm not going to live that long to see this break pay off. So they actually ended up taking it off the website because their research found that people were making detrimental decisions based on that analysis. So is it a useful tool? Yes. It does require an input that no one knows the point at which we die. And again, to my next point there, make sure you consider joint life expectancy if you're married, because it really depends on the longer life of those two people, what is the optimal filing decision. Social Security is the best longevity hedge available. Social Security is really an annuity. You're buying a guaranteed payment for your life. So could you buy an annuity from an insurance company? Absolutely. What you cannot buy is a lifetime annuity that increases with inflation. You can buy an annuity that will increase by some stated amount, 2%, 3%, 4% per year. But what Social Security does, it's legislatively tied to inflation figures. So over the last couple of years, we've seen in Social Security increase on year-to-year basis at 7%, 8%. There's no annuity out there on the marketplace. It would be impossibly too expensive for an insurance company to hedge the risk of inflation outside of 30 years. So again, Social Security is such a valuable asset, and this decision is a really important one that you can control to optimize your financial plan. The last point I have here is don't be scared by projected trust fund depletion in 2033. This has been in the news. It'll continue to be in the news that the trust fund won't be sufficient to pay out full benefits starting in 2033. The numbers now is 79%. So if nothing happened, and if Congress didn't pull money from other pots, 79% of the money would be there to pay current retirees from Social Security in 2033. As I've noted earlier, we've been here before. 1977, 1983 were other major times where we made small tweaks. Again, nobody has not received a Social Security benefit since the first check was issued in the 1930s. And really, this is more of a demographic challenge. There's three forces that are causing this shortage. One, the baby boomers retiring. 2024 represents a peak 65 year, meaning that more people will turn 65 in this country in 2024 than any other year projected in the future or in the past. 12,000 people a day are turning age 65. We started hearing this figure back in 2011. It was 10,000 people. It steadily increased. This is the peak year. And the baby boomers will be fully full retirement age, fully at 65 in 2030. So we have a lot of pressure of people that are claiming Social Security. People are living longer. Beth talked about that. And then the third factor is people are having less kids. Fertility rates are down. When the baby boomers were born, the average woman was having 3.5 to 4 kids. Now it's 1.99 as the expected long-term average. So it's really a demographic challenge versus funds being mismanaged. So making a decision with that fear of, hey, I need to claim early because it won't be there, is likely not the most informed and best decision. So what planning opportunities exist by delaying Social Security? So again, as I noted earlier, Social Security delaying that gives you more control of your taxable income. And if you have control of your taxable income, that's very significant. So let's consider someone that retires at age 60 and then starts claiming Social Security at age 70. Well, that 60 to 70 timeframe, we have full control on taxable, likely have fully control, depending on your different assets, on taxable distribution, taxable income over that time period. What type of opportunities could that present? The first one is Roth conversions. So not having Social Security, which can be mostly taxable in some instances, will make the tax impact of Roth conversions less. So that age 60 to 70 time period, or whatever that time period is, after retirement and before Social Security and before required distributions are mandated from your 401k and IRAs, that's really a great time to consider something like a Roth conversion. You deducted from your 401k and contributed through your working years when your income was higher, and now you've got this time period with no income. Well, maybe fill up some of those lower tax bracket, convert some of that money to Roth. A Roth IRA, you never have a required distribution under current law. And when you do distribute it, it's tax-free. So actually that first point can also make your Social Security, once delayed, less taxable. The second point I have there is gains harvesting in taxable accounts. So capital gains rates today are at 0%, 15%, and 20%. A married couple has a 0% capital gains tax rate up to about $100,000 in income. So imagine a scenario again, after retirement, before Social Security claiming, that we're able to, and this doesn't necessarily mean you don't have more than this income, but we're able to hold taxable income. You might have other income from tax-free sources, but taxable income to say maybe $50,000. Well, you have the opportunity to harvest gains in your portfolio, get a step up in basis, which will help long term at no tax cost if you're able to do that in the 0% tax bracket. And then the third point I have here is just maximizing the opportunity to qualify for health insurance subsidies. So if you're buying health insurance after retirement, before Medicare, the Obamacare or Affordable Care Act state exchanges have generous subsidies that were kind of a byproduct of COVID and are now legislatively guaranteed through 2025. And what we see here is, a married couple that has $80,000 or $100,000 of taxable income can get some nice subsidies for health insurance. And that person's certainly not poor at that income. And again, they might have a lot of other tax-free income. So being able to control that income in retirement really allows us to optimize a lot of these things around the edges. And then being thoughtful about ordering of distributions. I mean, this is something that's just real key. Most of our clients have taxable money, maybe an after-tax joint brokerage account. They have Roth IRAs or permanent life insurance that's tax-free, or health savings account. And then they also have pre-tax money. Being smart about the ordering of that with the goal of lowering taxes over your lifetime rather than any one year can be pretty impactful. Beth introduced kind of the concept of health savings accounts. Health savings accounts are just phenomenal. They're triple tax advantage. They're the only tool in the tax code that allows you to save money that's like this. The health savings account is a bucket that you can save for future healthcare expenses. It's tax deductible. You can invest it. It's tax deferred growth. And as long as you pull it out for healthcare expenses, it's tax-free. So triple tax advantage, nothing else like it. I think health savings accounts are one of the most overlooked vehicles out there. Before Medicare, you can still fund a health savings account. After you're on Medicare, you can no longer fund it. So a few did you knows about HSAs. One, you can invest it like your 401k. I see a lot of people with a good health savings account balance that's just in cash. Because of those tax advantages, it oftentimes is very beneficial to look at investing that money. Two, pay current out-of-pocket healthcare expenses now and save the receipts. So if you're saving in a health savings account and you've got a $300 doctor visit for one of your kids or, for yourself, and you have the cash in your checking and savings account, I'd encourage you to spend that out of your checking and savings account. Don't interrupt that tax deferral in your HSA. Instead, you can save the receipt and potentially take that distribution later down the road at that same amount as a tax-free distribution. I don't even think that's going to be necessary because of the projected healthcare costs that a retiree faces through their life, which I'm going to go over in a minute. But still, it's a backdoor way to get back in there. I've got a few other notes on here that, if you're age 65 or later, you can take a taxable. There's no 20% penalty, even if it's not for a healthcare related expense. And when you die, if you have a health savings account, it passes on to a spouse with no impact. They can continue it on. When it goes down to the kids, it's fully taxable if there's still money in there. So that's where that shoebox method can pay off if you've got a lot of receipts through the course of the years that they can take a tax-free distribution that matches those costs. So what will our retirees healthcare, what will the average retiree pay for healthcare in retirement? I love this chart right here. This is a chart that we build into financial plans to show what the average person spends on healthcare in retirement. If you look on the left side of this graph here, it shows the average 65-year-old in 2024 spends about $550 a month. So for a married couple, we're forecasting about $13,000 a year. You can see the breakdown of that between Part B premiums, Part D premiums, which to our point earlier, could be a lot higher based on your income. Again, this is just averages. And then you also see Medigap policy premiums and then just average out of pocket. So this is what we build into financial plans, but also I think this is a good data point to show it's really going to be too hard for you to save too much in a health savings account. There's going to be the average retired married couple is spending somewhere around $300,000 or so through the course of their life on healthcare expenses. A good chunk of those can be reimbursed from an HSA.
Nathan, I'd like to highlight the fact that the inflation rate of healthcare is 6%. And that's a lot different from the rest of our expenses.
Right. Which makes that number even scarier. The importance of tax planning in retirement, optimizing marginal tax rates, identifying what we call tax torpedoes, which are those, the IRMA, which is the Medicare Part B and Part D additional premiums, taxation of Social Security, bumping you up into just different marginal tax rates. What we're looking at here is one of the tools that we use to help our retirees plan for that. So for instance, if we have a retiree that has their normal spending through the course of their retirement, and they call up and they say, hey, I need a new roof. I need $50,000 for a new roof. We're going to plug that into our a program like this, which will show, okay, if we take an additional dollar of taxable income, what impact is that going to have to your Part B and Part D premiums? What impact is that going to have to your marginal tax rate? What impact is that going to have to your taxation of Social Security? And then we can have a more informed conversation of, it is what it is, and it's unavoidable. But it also might be, hey, let's tap a tax-free source of income for this amount, maybe up to a certain amount. Maybe we grab that from a Roth IRA or something like that. We'll talk about that in a minute. But just being thoughtful of that and planning moving forward is just amazingly strong, because it's one of the things you can control. We can't control what the market does. We can't control inflation. You can make controlled decisions on stuff like this that will have a meaningful impact. Back to that, the IRMA, income related Medicare adjustment amount. And I referred to this earlier, but this is this IRS form SSA 44. And we can help fill this out, but this is the form that you would use to dispute a Medicare Part B or D additional charge. So the one that I mentioned earlier that I think gets overlooked all the time is when people retire. You're 64, you were making a good amount of money, you retired at 64. Well, at 66, you're going to have a higher premium because of that income you earned at 64. And if you truly retired, that's an eligible reason for that to be adjusted down. And that's an additional premium you shouldn't pay. Strategies to minimize IRMA. These are really kind of strategies to minimize taxes in retirement, period. What I have here is I have two columns. I've got on one side, I've got create tax-free sources of income. And obviously you can tap tax-free sources of income if you have them, but creating those. So the Roth IRA conversions, if you don't have a significant amount of Roth IRAs through your working career, in retirement, oftentimes is a great time to look at converting after your earned income. When you're in a lower tax bracket, look at converting some of that to Roth, and therein creates future tax-free sources of income. Building up HSAs, we talked about that. You can't put a lot of money in HSAs. You can only put for a single person, it's about a little bit over 4,000. For a married couple, for a family, it's a little bit over 8,000. If you're over age 50, you can put in an additional 1,000. So it's not something you can dump in 50,000 at once, but it's something that we really suggest people do over time and invest that money over time. If you don't have one and you have kids or grandkids, talk to them about these. I think HSAs are phenomenal tools. Tapping home equity through a home equity line of credit or reverse mortgage also is another opportunity. And then creating cash flow from permanent life insurance. Taking distributions from permanent life insurance can be structured in a way that's tax-free. So that could be an example of money you grab to replace that roof that doesn't trigger IRMA. The one on the right is lowering your adjusted gross income, could be another strategy here. Charitable giving from your IRA. If you're not doing that, if you're age 70 or older and you're giving charitably, not through a planned, some type of thoughtful estate planning concept already, doing it from your IRA often helps because it reduces your adjusted gross income. Itemizing your charitable contributions does not reduce your adjusted gross income. So that factors into certain things. QLACs, I've got qualified longevity annuity contracts. Those can also lower your R&Ds, which then could have positive impacts on IRMA. So just different things that we're talking about, really value add things that, again, things that you can control to lessen certain costs or taxes in retirement.
There
So
we are.
Yeah, that's that's all the stuff that we wanted to cover today with those two programs plus some different planning considerations. We would very much welcome any questions. Do we have any questions, Megan or Jay?
Not yet. Though I would add, a lot of this conversation revolves around longevity. And Nathan just today, Ed Slott and Jeff Levine were talking about a longevity calculator that they both like to use. It's called livingto100.com. It's about a 40-question survey that can help narrow in like family history, your health history, things of that nature that might help drive into a piece. They both also noted they are not paid by that group. I think it was created by a couple physicians and things of that nature to kind of help people understand that longevity. To the whole piece, longevity risk is your biggest hurdle that you have to overcome, and everyone's largest fear is running out of money before they pass away. So, that's just another tool you have there.
It's interesting.
I like that. What was the website again, Jay?
livingto100.com, and Megan has put it into the Q&A section as well.
Lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hopefully somebody's got some questions, or else we did a really good job.
You want to
While
go
we're
to that
waiting to
next?
see-
You want to go that? Yeah, I was going to say, Beth, you want to go to the next slide that just has contact information. If obviously, we would welcome, reaching out to us or your advisor for any more detailed questions. Megan?
And I didn't put, I'm just going to point out, I did not put each individual's advisor's contact information on here. If you don't have their direct number, this is the main phone number that gets to our client support team, and they will give you to your advisor and take a message if necessary. You'll get a human being to speak to.
All right, so we've got a question from Steve Schultz. I'm almost 100% positive we can answer this one right off the bat. But if a non-working spouse is under age 62 and the working spouse starts drawing Social Security benefits, is the non-working spouse eligible for 50% of the working spouse benefits prior to their age 62? In unison.
No.
No.
Yeah. So the non-working spouse, the sole determinant of their benefit is the age at which they claim. So the non-working spouse would be eligible for 50% of the benefit if they wait to their own full retirement age.
We've got another question here. If you've already paid a higher Medicare premium than you should have based on your ability to argue your IRMA calculation, can you file the dispute form after the fact, or is the dispute form only before you pay the premium? Is there an ex post facto availability?
It's a good question. I'm not sure the answer to that.
I'm not certain. I can try to look it up real quick.
While you're looking that up, I believe the answer is that yes, you can, but you can confirm that because it's always better. We have a question from Melanie. If we could revisit the survival benefits for married couples and how long you have to be married to be eligible for those.
Do you want to go back to that slide?
Yes, this is not going to be pretty, people.
Steve, one of our partner CPAs here, just mentioned that he has had clients get refunds after the fact.
Great.
Thanks, Steve, for confirming my guess.
So I think there was a question of how long you need to be married. It's only 9 months. It's not long. It's not long at all. So the requirements are your age. So we've got those. You could go as early as age 60 for a widow benefit. You have to be married for at least 9 months before your spouse's death, and that you did not remarry before age 60.
And it's based on the surviving spouse's full retirement age. It does not go up to age 70.
Isn't it different if you're divorced versus widowed?
Yes.
Well, go back to that one, last one, Beth. No, well, so I think Beth, I think you misspoke here. So it could go to 70 if we're talking about survivor benefits. So you're going to get 100% of the deceased worker's benefit. So if they claimed at age 70, you're going to get their benefit at age 70. If they claimed at age 62, you're going to get their age 62 benefit.
But if they haven't claimed yet.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was speaking to. Thanks
Right.
for clarifying.
Yeah.
And then Megan, you had mentioned
Divorced spouses.
yeah, the rules are a little bit different around yeah, I mean, the divorced spouse is more similar to just a living spouse. They're not going to get 100% of their working spouse's benefit.
Just had to have been married for 10 years.
Right.
Yep. And previously, I had the question before: you were married to spouse number one for 10 years, get divorced. You're now married to spouse number two for 10 years and get divorced. Can you claim on both? You cannot claim on both, but you can go to the Social Security Administration office, explain your life story, and they will look up and determine which benefit you can draw on. If you are divorced from your second spouse, you can go back and look at your first or second spouse.
One other point. Back in the past, there were a lot of books sold 4 or 5 years ago on these different claiming strategies. If you've got one of those on your bookshelf, a lot of those strategies, file and suspend, gosh, I can't remember what different ones were called, but there were a lot of gimmicky things that you used to be able to do with Social Security that you cannot do anymore. Obama closed a lot of those loopholes a few years ago. So just FYI, there was a lot more creative planning things that basically people were kind of, I mean, a little bit double dipping. There were strategies that they're really kind of hard to believe even existed. So if you see something about one of those, reach out to us. But a lot of those are no longer available.
And one little maybe insensitive remark here is if you are married and you're thinking about divorce and you've been married for 9-ish years, you might want to drag the divorce out for 10 to get the full 10 years. Just a little tidbit there.
Don't give up at 9 years and 10
I'm
months.
just right. Just letting you know.
We had a work-based question on Medicare. The participant is 67. They have not filed for Medicare because they were covered by a work plan through their spouse. Does it affect their benefits, and should they file as soon as I can? My comment back in the check is once you're no longer covered by that work-based plan, you should reach out to Social Security and begin the Medicare process. But it should not have any effect on the benefit because of the coverage through a work-based plan, correct?
Yes. And we are at our time. It is now noon. Hopefully we've answered everybody's questions. And if we haven't, we encourage you to please call our office and we'll set up an appointment and follow up.
And once the recording is available, we will send it out to everyone who registered. It will also be available on our website.
What about the slides? Are we sending the slides,
Yes.
or will those be posted?
Everything will be posted.
Perfect. Thanks everybody for carving out an hour. We hope this was that you might have got a nugget or two, and we appreciate your time.
Have a wonderful day. So the people. Hi, welcome everybody.